Hey guys, so today we're going to touch base again in the Active Directory world. We're going to continue on our group policy configuration. And our group policy configuration for this video is going to be focused on WMI filters. How to create them, what they're used for, and how to apply them. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a WMI filter for Windows 11. So I'm going to go into New. I'm going to name the filter Windows 11 Client. I'm going to call it Windows 11 Desktop. We're going to go into Add. And in the query, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create the WMI filter. So the WMI filter is basically, it's really like a SQL statement. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, only allow this particular filter to be applied to machines that have a version like 10.0.2%. And what that'll do is anything that's 10.0.2% will apply. Now, Windows Server 2022 uses that same versioning. So we'd have to add the product type. So 10.0.2% and then product type equal 1, which is desktop. That's going to allow us to apply the filter specifically for Windows 11 client machines that are desktop machines and that are a specific version, or anything that's got a version beyond it in a service pack. Now you could use 10.0.22000, which I think is which is Windows 11 22H3. Now, if you get to the 24H1, that product type would change, and you'd have to go in here and modify the WMI filter unless you only want to apply it to certain versions of Windows 11. Like, for instance, you only want to patch certain versions and other versions you don't want to patch. This is a perfect way to do that because you could use the WMI filter to filter specifically one version of Windows 11 versus the other. But at any rate, so what we do is select star from Win32 underscore operating system where version like 10.0.2%, end quote, and product type equals 1. Okay, so now only on the Windows 11 machines and machines that are desktop. So we'll click OK and we'll click Save. And now we've created the WMI filter. Now let's say for the sake of this, we also want to create one for Windows 10 machines. So we could do Windows 10 Client. And we'll say Windows 10 Desktops. And we'll do Add. And in this one, we'll do select star from Win underscore, Win32 underscore operating system, where version like 10.0.1% and product type, oops, that's one word, equals 1. Okay, so now we're saying Windows 10 and a desktop. So click OK and we click Save. And we have our two WMI filters. Now in most of these scenarios, you're going to need variables in here. You could set it to define specific machine names. So in other words, using instead of using product type, you could use name, where name equals, and then you could use the host name of the machine. As long as your DNS is set up correctly, it'll work fine. Or if you don't want to use that, and say, for instance, you want to use like your PDC or your primary domain controller, and then you have your BDCs or your backup domain controllers, which is an old way of saying the master for your global catalog, and then the secondary domain controllers. You could change the domain role to 4 and 5. So 5 is only PDC, 4 is any other machine that's not your PDC. That's helpful if you want to create like an NTP server on maybe not your primary domain controller. Maybe you're in the middle of a migration and you want the majority of your machines to authenticate to your new domain controller and not the old one any longer. you could force that through here by setting your domain role on your clients and force your clients to use a specific name to look up for authentication. You could also do this by setting a weight. So you could change the weight in the actual WMI filter. So you can make the older server seem heavier, like there's more traffic going to it, which will automatically default all of your traffic to the new domain controller. This is all done through WMI filters. It's all easily added and removed. But for the sake of this, now let's go over and specifically show how we would apply this. So if we go into our group policy objects, we have a Windows 10 user and a Windows 11 user. And while these two policies are very similar, and by very similar, they are the same. That is just how the CIS benchmark lays this stuff down, but it is the same. At any rate, if we want to say we only want to apply these Windows 10 user policy to Windows 10 users, you click on the scope up here and you choose the drop down for your WMI filter and you choose Windows 10 client and OK. And now this policy will only apply if there's a Windows 10 desktop. And then you can do the same thing here, Windows 11 client. Yes. So now that policy will only apply if it's a Windows 11 desktop. So now when you apply your policies, you could say, well, if the person logs in and they're on a Windows 10 machine, it'll only apply a Windows 10 policy. If it's on a Windows 11 machine, it'll only apply a Windows 11 policy. And this is how you could really itemize these by choosing your WMI filter based off of the actual policy you want it to apply to. Same thing with your domain controllers. If you want to use the default domain policy for your old domain controllers, but you want to add a new policy to replace them, you could use the WMI filters to apply only specific policies to specific systems or specific host names. And this is how WMI filters work. I'll add a bunch of these things into the description to help you during the installation process, but that's the breakdown of how to create a WMI filter and how to apply the WMI filter to your group policy objects. And you can see in here too that we can see these in here as well. You could go another level down here and add delegation. So in other words, you could say only apply it to these desktops with this host name and only allow it to run on these particular users, which would also give you more ability to customize how you want the policies to apply. But for the sake of this and the sake of testing this and trying this out, I would suggest creating a couple of these WMI filters and applying them to your test policies and seeing how they affect your clients. Like and subscribe for more videos. Hopefully you find this helpful. Thanks again.